Good morning. Let's test the sound. This is a new facility. We're testing the sound. Can you hear me in the back? Way in the back. All right. Thank you so much. I don't understand why there are so many people sitting in the back. So you get the full impact. I understand, but there are floor seats. And as some people were saying, some of us may never be in a floor seat. So this is a chance to take advantage of that. So if at any point during the morning you have a desire to join the floor, please do. It is a uh, it is a wonderful opportunity for us to be here. I just want to thank Mick and Suzanne who worked on this. This is an incredible facility, and I'm very, very proud of the opportunity to have our group be among the first ones to be here. We are starting early, and I will have some remarks later on. But I just wanted to welcome you all to Pauley, and we are today very, very fortunate to have the opportunity to hear. What is the noise? Huh? Ah, because I was wondering whether there was something in the back, and I should check it out. Um, Anyway, we're very, very fortunate today to have Dr. David Feinberg with us. He is a fantastic, fantastic friend of student affairs. I was being fortunate to meet him early on when I first came, and to appreciate his collaboration with ASH and with Student Psychological Services then and CAPS now. David is truly um, I will say this, a luminary in his field. He is the president of the UCLA Health System and chief executive officer of the UCLA Hospital System, and also associate vice chancellor of UCLA Health Services. You can read his resume. He's done some wonderful things. I just we were very fortunate to be able to have him join us, and he has to leave early, so we're especially happy that he took the time to be with us this morning. I want to thank David Barron for making sure that we were able to have David Feinberg here for a few minutes. He has oversight over an enormous enterprise. And the work that he does there is extraordinary, certainly on a medical level. But there is another aspect of the work that he does that is very close to our work, I think, and that is that he has focused a lot of his work and his attention to excellence in service, excellence in participation and engagement with his clients, his patients, his staff. And as you know, in student affairs over the last few years, we've been really working very hard at focusing on customer service, or more importantly, focusing on our student-centeredness. And I think that we have an extraordinary example of somebody who has taken a very, very large enterprise and made some substantial changes in the field. And that, in some ways, is what we are aspiring to do the same in student affairs. So, having said that, I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to hear as much from David as possible. So, I'm going to ask him to come over. Thank you, David.
Think it's better if I do this. It's my dream to be in the NBA. I think this is the closest I'm ever going to be to being in the NBA. So I'm at least on a Division I college basketball court with people watching, and we'll do layup drills after. Um, Thank you so much for having me. Can I ask you to raise your hand if you're a UCLA student here and you don't work for student affairs? So I would say you're not student centered. So we would never have a meeting like this without patients. And I'll tell you about how we got there. And I think that's an important part of if you're really doing things to students or you're doing things through students. Um, I came here for my training in psychiatry. I was so excited to get into UCLA and trained in psychiatry and child psychiatry. And is it okay if I stand on the other side of the table? There. And and 5 years ago, I was the happiest guy in the world. I was working half time as a child psychiatrist, so I was seeing patients with attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity, autism. I saw a lot of kids with substance abuse issues, and half time I was running our psychiatric hospital. And our psychiatric hospital is down the street. It used to be in the old building where the old hospital was. It's a 75-bed psychiatric hospital, and we take our patients, about 40% of them, sometimes students, into the hospital against their will. So they're literally suicidal or homicidal. They don't want to come in the hospital. We tie them in leather. We shoot medications into their butt. We bring them upstairs, and we don't do much in psychiatry, right? We do have a few medicines, and we have a little bit of talk therapy. We're not doing transplants. And 90% of those patients that we discharged would refer us to a friend. So old building, crazy people. They didn't want to come in. We tied them up, and they hugged us when they left. And so I thought if I could do that, if we could do that in psychiatry, and that was where I grew up in, I thought, well, that's how you take care of people. You take care of them like they're your own family. So 5 years ago, the guy in my current job takes off to a new job, and we're about to move into the new hospital. And the dean says to me, Dave, I'd like you to run the new hospitals for a year, because we're about to do this move, and it's the wrong time to do a search to get somebody who's really qualified to do the job. So if you wouldn't mind doing it for a year, then we'll find somebody. When we're settled in, we'd get a better person. So with that vote of confidence, I took the job. And the first thing that I did, honestly, was I called my parents and said, could you send me some ties? Because as a psychiatrist, I had one suit, a few ties, and I saw these guys dressed up a lot in suits. And the first day on the job, some guy comes up to me and says, how many bunkers do you want to put in the MOB? The problem was, I didn't know what a bunker was, and I didn't know what an MOB was. So it was a very hard question for me to answer. And what I realized was I was never going to be as smart as the 2,000 doctors we have at UCLA, especially in their field. I could go pretty good, not anymore, but I could go pretty good if you wanted to talk about ADHD. But beyond that, it was way beyond me. So with a lot of nervousness, new ties, and a nice suit, I walked down the hall from the old psych hospital into the old medical center. And I haven't stopped walking for the last 5.5 years. And what I do every day, I will do it today, is I spend about 2 hours in patient rooms, sitting on the bed, saying, how's the care? Is there anything I can do to assist you? Every patient that I see gets my business card and my cell phone number with the message to call me 24 hours a day if they need anything. So in those first 3 months, after doing this for a couple hours a day, I learned two things. I learned that UCLA certainly performs miracles that other places don't do. We do more organ transplants than any hospital in the United States. We actually just did a limb transplant. I was talking with our transplant surgeon last night. We've identified our first face transplant recipient, and we're waiting for a donor. We're also going to do a limb liver transplant combined. So a lot of high-tech stuff. We've invented a lot of things at UCLA through our medical center. The PET scan, the scientific underpinnings of the MR and the CT. We diagnosed the first case of AIDS at UCLA. We came up with Herceptin, the nicotine patch. The list kind of goes on and on of these incredible things that UCLA has done, miracles around healthcare. That became very clear to me. And the other thing that I learned was patients in our hospital had no idea who was in charge of their care. The place was dirty. We had air conditioners that didn't work. The hot food never came hot. The cold food was never cold. And if you asked patients, would you refer us to a friend? This is medical center, not the psychiatric hospital. Despite being at that time ranked number 3 in U.S. News and World Report Best Hospital, Our patient satisfaction scores were in the 38th percentile. This is a number you want to be higher, not lower. Our emergency room, I don't know if any of you have worked at UCLA for a long time, but you remember we had an emergency room across from Ralph's Groceries. You entered, it was kind of like a bomb shelter. The emergency room patient satisfaction was in the 14th percentile about 5 years ago. So what I felt that we should do is we should get focused on taking care of patients and to become very, very compassionate and patient-centered. And when I said it to groups like this, people thought I was crazy. They said, "This is the psychiatry guy. He's not the real guy who's going to be running the place. We've done customer service before. I got a coffee mug. We can never be as good as Cedars or UCL or St. John's. We have residents. We got an old building. Elevators don't work. It'll never happen." And we did it one patient at a time. I say that 5 years ago, I'm not sure what our purpose or mission statement was, but it should have been something like, "We're UCLA. Aren't you lucky you get to see us?" And what we did was change that. And I would say the 25,000 people that now make up the UCLA health system can tell you this as well as I can say it. Our purpose is to heal humankind one patient at a time. And we do that by alleviating suffering, promoting health, and delivering acts of kindness. We're the only academic medical center in the United States that has kindness in its purpose. But what have we done over the last 5 years? We've gone from 38th percentile. There are 6,000 hospitals in the U.S. We are the number one rated hospital of all academic medical centers. And among those 6,000, that 38th percentile number is now the 99th percentile. So don't clap. That's really bad. 99th percentile, we are the best in a very, very bad industry. So 99th percentile patient satisfaction means that 85 out of 100 people that we treated check a box off. Yes, I would always refer you to a friend, or would give us a score of 9 or 10. If you get 85 out of 100 in our industry, that's considered best in class. Now think about it. We now have all brand new buildings. We still have all those people making miracles happen. We have this great customer patient engagement program that they're writing books about. And yet, of the last 100 patients we took care of, 15 of them, and by definition, those 15 people are somebody's mom, brother, sister, coworker, friend, child. 15 out of the last 100 people that we cared for would not refer us to a friend. So our goal is not to be 99th percentile. Our goal is to get it right 100 out of 100 times. And when we get it right then, nobody cares when they get the phone call at home that their third grader wants to tie yarn around her neck in a haiku poem, or that their wife has a lump in the mammography, or the elderly parent fell and is bleeding in the bathroom. At that exact moment, those families don't care about what we've done in the UCLA health system. What they care about is, are we going to answer the phone the right way? Are we going to greet them the right way in the emergency room? Are we going to engage with them in a way that's culturally sensitive, that's private, that's of the highest quality? It's showtime for us when those things happen. And so even if we get to 100 out of 100, our most important patient is that very next patient, because that patient's and that family's life has just gone on hold. And when that happens, that's when we have to be there and provide a very caring and nurturing environment. So the clapping will come when we get it 100 out of 100, and when we get it right with every single patient every single time. So we're very, very proud of the progress we've made, but we have an incredible long way to go to do this. Now, when I took over 5 years ago, and had this great opportunity, we were having a lot of financial trouble. We had just borrowed $75 million to make payroll from the chancellor in the health system. So business wasn't particularly good in the health system. Since that time, we've generated almost $1 billion of cash. Profits in hospitals that are at 3% or above are spectacular. The last few years, we've had 19% and 12% profits. So it's insane how much money we have. I say that the University of California is having money problems. The state of California is having money problems. Our only money problems are where to hide the money, because everyone's coming after the money. So the reason that I think our financial picture turned around is because we don't talk about finances. We talk about how you care for patients. And the result has been that people really tell their friends about care. Those same emergency rooms, if you went to our Santa Monica emergency room today, and I hope you don't, although it's an incredible experience. If you do sprain your ankle, I suggest you go there. The Santa Monica UCLA Medical Center emergency room now, counting the time it takes to get your car back to you from valet parking, if you're not admitted to the hospital, which is about 80% of patients we see just come to the ER for treatment, is under 52 minutes, full treatment. And Westwood, we're just over 90 minutes with a goal to get it below 90. So when you come to the emergency room, it's not a 9-hour experience. It's closer to a 90-minute experience. Let me tell you, I'd much rather answer questions than keep talking. So I'm just going to end with a couple of stories. I'm going to tell you one where we got it right and one where we got it wrong. And I think that these stories have been very, very helpful in moving the organization forward. So this is a good one in this kind of building. So 63-year-old woman from the Valley, UCLA alumni, comes to our emergency room in the middle of the night with abdominal pain from the Valley, drives in with her husband. And we examine her, this is here at Ronald Reagan, and we find out that she has some abdominal problems and she probably needs to have her gallbladder removed. So we tell the husband to go home and get some personal belongings because surgery will be at 6 in the morning, so he's going to drive to the Valley and come back. He takes her purse and he takes her coat. We reread the scan and we say, actually, everything's okay. You can go home. She says, well, my husband left. Can I have some money for a taxi? I'm sorry, miss, you don't qualify for our policy for a taxi voucher. So she finds a few dollars in a sweater she still has on, goes partway to the Valley. Husband picks her up. It's like 2 in the morning, and they go back to the house. Where they get there and the phone rings, it's us. We've reread the scan, and there's air under your diaphragm. It's an emergency. You got to come back in. We got to take your gallbladder out. So she comes back in, and we take out her gallbladder successfully. We're good at that kind of stuff. And following surgery, we come into the operating room, and we ask her to sign a consent form. You see, we used a syringe on her that we had used on the patient before, and we want to check her for HIV. So we check her for HIV, and it turns out to be negative. So if you take a step back, this is a wildly successful case. Lady with abdominal pain, we took her gallbladder out, no infection, let's move on. If that's your mom, how upset are you? So what we do, and this is what I would say about having patients or students here, that woman comes in and talks to our staff. She's spoken now to probably close to 400 or 500 people, everyone who was involved in her care. The valet parking, the emergency room, the operating room, the transporters, the housekeepers, the people that hired those people, the IT people that support those people, and she tells her story. And when she tells her story, a few things happen in the organization. One, nobody asks twice anymore for a taxi voucher. These policies and things we get caught up in our head become very real and very different when you hear it through the voice of the patient in our case. And we have 1,000 policies and trainings about not using syringes over. But it didn't work. And after you hear her story, you take a huge step forward, I think, in becoming a much more safe institution. So we use the bad or the ugly to help move us forward. And then there's the good. So these days, because we're doing so well on those patient satisfaction scores, all the hospitals around the country want to see what we're doing. So we have rounds now where our entire management team goes and sees patients. We do it in the middle of the night. We do it on weekends. Everybody gets business cards with cell phone numbers on it. You go into our patient rooms now, and it's oftentimes on the nightstand. You'll see 3 or 4 cards with people that have put down their cell phone numbers. So our chief financial officer, chief legal officer, chief human resource officer, people that were not clinically based, spend hours a week in patient rooms hearing about the care, helping patients. So Good Sam, which is a hospital downtown, a very good hospital, had come to see our rounds. And we took them how we walk around, how we do it, and come back. We have this kind of whole system now. And I was walking with the chief executive of Good Sam. And I said, here's how we do it. We just knock on this door. And I met this grandpa who's sitting next to his wife, who's really on her last breath. She's dying of breast cancer. And the grandpa starts telling me the story that, let's call her grandma, has been a grandma to a grandson. She has one grandson, but she had never had a granddaughter. And her daughter was giving birth to a granddaughter in San Francisco a few days ago. But our nurses heard about it, knew that grandma was passing away, called the daughter in San Francisco, and had her flown down to our facility in Santa Monica where we tried to induce labor. We were unsuccessful. We moved her to Westwood where we were successful. She gave birth a few days prior, and then we delivered granddaughter up to grandma upstairs so she could hold her about 2 days before she passed away. And so that was like the day before that I had come in the room. And this grandpa has this look on his face of complete peace, that this kind of whole circle had been completed, and that this has happened. And this guy from Good Sam looks at me and like, how does this happen? I said, well, this isn't me. I'd never been in this room in my life. These are the people, the healers that come to work every day to take care of our patients, are now empowered to do whatever it is to alleviate suffering, promote health, or deliver acts of kindness. So our system is designed to allow those nurses at the bedside to make those kind of decisions, and they're never asked to justify what they've done. Rather, they're supported, and we celebrate when we kind of get it right. So that's one. If that was your grandma, there'd be a really positive feeling about it. And just think about that family when they go out and talk about UCLA, what it does for all of us, what it does for the brand, what it does to kind of symbolize excellence and caring. So this is really fun talking to Pavillion. I'm happy to take any questions or comments or anything. I don't know what your timing is. Yes, David.
Could you just say a word about service recovery for us?
Sure. So service recovery that David asked is, we give 30 million doses of medication a year. We serve 12,000 meals a day. We mess up. We make a lot of mistakes despite the best people and the best processes. Things happen. It's a complex organization. So when we mess up, we have a very, very aggressive program of recovering from what we would call a service lapse. So everybody carries in their pocket cards for Starbucks, free massages, food, gas cards. So I'm very sorry that there's been a delay and you're waiting 45 minutes for an MR that was scheduled 45 minutes ago. And for this inconvenience, one of our staff members says to you, here's a coupon to get a cup of coffee or something. When you actually do that to people, they feel like you actually care about their time. Now, you can't explain away a 12-hour delay, so we got to get the place running the right way. But sometimes things happen in our world that we do have an emergency and your care gets bumped. So everybody is trained on how to use these tools. When I started, I met a patient, an elderly man at our Santa Monica facility who clearly was dying. And he was saying that we lost his dentures in the hospital. And we were saying, no, you didn't come in with your dentures. And he just wanted his dentures, which cost about $1,800, so he could eat a couple meals before he died that weren't pureed. I mean, it was that simple. And we had probably spent $5,000 of staff time denying his dentures that cost $1,800. So we spun that around. And that group now gets in trouble if they don't spend all their budget, as opposed to before they used to get in trouble or they would get rewarded for going under their budget. So that group now doesn't sit in the office waiting for complaints to come in. They fan out all over the place looking for mistakes that we've made so that we can recover from those mistakes. And people are very grateful if you apologize, if you listen to what they said went wrong, and then give them a token of appreciation for the inconvenience. We've also done that with our docs. So, we have 2,000 doctors, and David knows a lot about this program. We got 2,000 doctors. Let's say 12 of them are jerks, real jerks. That's probably about the right number. It's actually the exact right number. So, so a normal UCLA doctor gets about 1.5 complaints per year. A complaint could be, you took out the wrong kidney, to the lady at the front desk was rude. Anything we count as a complaint, and we're very aggressive in capturing complaints. But these 12 people get, let's say, 30 or 40 complaints a year. And we always knew they were the bad guys, but we didn't really have data. And many of them are also superstars in their field. So what we do with that group, and this has taken us a few years, is we give them that data. They're met by somebody that's a peer, that's trained, that says, "Hey, Dr. Barron, you're getting 30 complaints a year, and everyone else gets about one." And Dr. Barons of the world all say, "Well, that's because I'm a spine surgeon and my patients are sicker." We say, "Well, actually, this data has been normed for spine surgeons. Well, I just work on the cervical spine." Well, there's actually cervical spine data in there. And we don't want you to change your behavior. We just want you to bond with the data. Doctors are really good with data. So, of those 12 doctors that we've made these interventions on, 8 of them have totally self-corrected down to about 1.5 complaints per year. There's still 4. We think 2 are on their way, and we think 2 are not on their way. But it gives us then the ability to go to the next level and say, this is probably not the right place for you. But we've made a huge progress in saying you can't act like this. And that system, I think, is also sort of service recovery. We've also seen a huge decrease in malpractice rates because of these kinds of programs. So nobody is immune from this. And for those 2 or 3 or 4 that aren't able to correct, we don't care who they are. They won't stay at UCLA. Yes, please.
What kind of recognition program or programs do you have for letting staff know that they're doing a good job and you appreciate it?
Yeah, so what kind of recognition programs do we have for staff that's doing a good job? We have all kinds. So probably the most effective is telling people how spectacular they are and just giving verbal feedback. We celebrate these kinds of things. When we hear that something's happened incredibly, it gets spread through the organization. Then we have some formal programs. Our customer service patient satisfaction program is called CI Care, and it's a mnemonic for. It actually started with how you connect when you come into a room. So you connect, introduce yourself, call the person by last name, ask for questions, how you respond, and exit. So that's what it stood for. It's become the whole kind of umbrella. And so we give CI Care awards to people that have gone really above and beyond, and we make a big deal about a CI Care award. We're actually thinking of giving our first CI Care award to a non-member of our staff. And it's going to actually go, this is another good place to say it, it's going to Meta World Peace. So Ron Artest is the only celebrity that has come to our place and continually visits patients in our psychiatric hospital. And he's incredibly therapeutic, and he does it below the radar. And so we're thinking of actually giving him a CI Care Award. It's our first non-one. But if you get the CI Care Award, you really achieved. And then we give a lot of movie tickets away. We give a lot of basketball tickets. So we have, low priced gifts that we give as part of that. We give a lot of books away on leadership as part of CI Care. So we do a lot of reading. Yes, please. Do the health insurance partner with us around this kind of stuff? Not really. I mean, as much as we're, we met with the leadership of Blue Cross yesterday. The health insurance people care when it's their family. All of a sudden, they get very interested. But right now, the business of medicine is still pretty adversarial with the health insurance companies. So, we negotiate really hard around rates. Then they don't pay. Then we sue them. Then they pay. I mean, it's still a very adversarial component. The problem is our cost is actually below average at UCLA, but our rates are high, so we're expensive to them. So when patients want to come to us, that's not always a good thing in the eyes of an insurance company because it's less expensive for them to sometimes get care elsewhere. Well, thank you guys. Enjoy your time, and I'm sorry I can't stay and hang out with you. Thank you.
Oh, that was fabulous, wasn't it? Thank you so much. I also want to mention his book, which is Prescription for Excellence. I just want to make sure we have an opportunity, all of us, to look at it and learn some more. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
It was very inspirational. Thank you. I'm gonna stay. You want where do you- There? Okay. All right. Thank you all for being here. I just want to say a few things. We're going to have an opportunity to hear from Mick, and we have student performers as well, which is always fun. But I do want to say a little bit as the year starts. Um, I'm not like David; I have to have notes. So let me indulge me with that for a moment. I wanted to have an opportunity to sort of share with you a little bit about some of the conversations we had at the end of the summer with our student affairs directors in our retreat. At that time, one of the things that, oh my God, there's people sitting all the way back there. Talk about being far away. Anyway, um, one of the things that we talked about was sort of the new normal. We've gone over the last few years through quite a bit of change, and there is a bunch of new realities in the world, and how do they affect us? One of the things that we did was spend some time on three major events that sort of rocked higher education. One of them was, of course, the Penn State scandal. Many of you, all of you, know about that and the tragedy there. The second one was the matter in UC Davis, very close to us. The pepper spraying incident, and the third one, a little more removed from our point of view, but certainly still very impactful in higher education, and that was the firing of the president of UVA, and then the restatement of the president of UVA. That whole matter took about 3 weeks, I think. So just a very short period of time. It was very dramatic. And really brought a whole lot of questions to mind for higher education. So we sort of reflected on that a bit, and the point in a way was to try to think about what are the realities, what is that new normal that we so often talk about, and what is the impact on us, and how do we do our work? I'm just very grateful for David's talk. I think that was just absolutely fantastic. I mean, just I'm very taken by the acts of kindness in their mission statement. But as we talk about what does it all mean for student affairs, what does it all mean for us as we go forward and think about the challenges this coming year? There are a number of things that we ought to consider. And when we were looking at those three narratives and those three cases, in some ways the question is the public nature of those statements and the perception that those situations created related to higher education, and that affects us in one way or another. So the public image matters a lot, and as we know, the situations that develop now do have just massive fallouts. Let me just give you a very quick example, very recent. Our whole controversy about holistic review. Many of you have been reading the Daily Brewing. Many of you know that this is a very, very painful situation for our students. If there's time, I'd like to talk a little bit about that as well. But what it is that some situations that are very local, very personal, in some way personal from an institutional point of view, do get played out very broadly in the press, and we are tremendously affected by it. So there's very fast change. Let's look at that situation for a quick second. The Daily Bruin published that we were careful to make sure that at least the Latino community, student community, and the African American student community were aware that the article was coming out. So we tried to do that give them an advance warning. But the truth of the matter is that very quickly, because of all of the new technology that we have, the story gets played out. The narrative gets played out in ways that are clearly and very quickly out of control from the institution. If you want the president, the chancellor, the president, the provost, the vice chancellor to respond to that, the response has to be very, very quick and go out there and be part of the story very fast. Well, true, but how do we make that stick, and how are we sure that the language, the presentation, our presentation of the issue really hits the mark and it doesn't come back to bite us in another way? So that's an example that it's very close to us. We're right in the middle of it, and it is the capacity for all of us to be able to think about it and to do a thoughtful response, to include thought and care and consultation in the way we do our business, is almost taken away from us by the fast movement of media, the fast movement of social what is it called? Social networking. Thank you. Um, so that's a major issue, and the fact that things are out of our control. The global interdependency is another element that, on the one hand, is very, very attractive in the sense that, from an educational point of view, we're looking to educate global citizens. On the other hand, the global reality has a way of getting us. The economic crisis in Europe is getting us very, very directly, and our economic crisis is getting somebody else. So it has its own challenges. The economic crisis and the job market, both for graduate and undergraduate students, really creating a whole new approach for us. In the past, we used to say, first of all, loans are a good business. Loans are good. Go ahead and take loans because the repayment is going to be quick and easy and reasonable. Well, families are very, very reluctant right now to take loans. On the other hand, we used to say, you're educating for education's sake. On the one hand, we're not here for the direct relationship with a job. We are here for a relationship with a profession, with an engagement, with a longer, a more important life mission. Well, now we're talking about jobs. We're talking about the workforce. And what are we doing? What are we doing to make sure that our students really have a job when they graduate? And ideally a profession, ideally a career, but really a job. That changes things. And of course, there's the whole issue of risk management, which is creating a set of requirements that are often crippling, but we need to meet them. And then, of course, there is the politicized discourse and what that means in our own capacity to engage students and engage communities. All of these issues are hitting us in ways that make it very important that we pay very close attention to the way we do our job. It is clear to me, and I think it's clear to all of us here, that in spite of the challenges, in spite of the difficult situation, higher education continues to be the primary path, the most effective path, the most meaningful path to social mobility, the most meaningful path to an informed citizenship. And that means that we are here, in a sense, to strengthen democratic and inclusive values. And I want to make sure that we're all part of that. So there are a variety of questions that we need to ask ourselves as we go forward. Part of it has to do with our own engagement with our own excellence. We cannot just say, just because I did that yesterday, I've done my job, I'm excellent. No, excellence is really something that we need to go at it all the time. There's so much crisis around us that I worry sometimes that we plan around crisis as opposed to plan around strategies, our capacity to be strategic, to be thoughtful, to be anticipatory in terms of what our students need. We need to be thinking about what are the skills and competences that all of us as staff, as professionals need to develop. What are our obligations as student affairs professionals to families, to our students, to their families, to our staffs here, to UCLA and higher education? I think we have a series of principles that we have been trying to live by, and that is, and I really take David's criticism very much to heart when he said to me, well, then you're not student-centered. It just hit me right here. But he's right. He's right. It's important for us to consider that. So if our principle is that we be in fact student-focused and responsive, if we do in fact have a culture of excellence, what does that mean? It means that we have to be constantly in a state of self-reflection, self-assessment, self-criticism, and we have to be open to external criticism and scrutiny. We have to be very nimble. We have to be value-driven. We have to be inclusive. We have to be attentive to those trends and changing realities, whether they are internal to the campus or external. Our reality changed Tuesday when the Daily Brewing published the article, changed our world, changed what we are in, certainly changed the way my day goes. And if my day changes, I know that your day changes as well. I'm sorry to say. But we have to be very careful stewards, and we have to focus on collaborations. And as you know, our strategic plan has really only four strategic directions. And I think that those are consistent with those principles. And that is that we need to ensure student welfare on two tracks. One is the focus on diversity and campus climate. And let me tell you, that climate is going to be with us. The discussion of climate, rightly so, is going to be with us for a long time and very aggressively in the immediate future. And similarly, we need to have a focus on health and wellness, and that is consistent with an institutional priority. We continue to talk about meeting our students where they are. And let me say again that meeting our students where they are means recognizing the individual student. It's not a question of location. It's a question of who they are, what they bring, what their background is, what their family is like, what their aspirations are like. And that is what we need to focus. We need to focus on that. And as we do that, the focus is on their leadership development, their professional readiness, and our capacity to assist them to be truly global leaders. We are also in the business of supporting the academic enterprise and institutional goals. And at that point, the whole issue of our capacity to focus on enrollment management, not only focusing on recruiting and admitting and enrolling the best students that we can, but also it means that the quality of the experience is going to be crucial for us to be able to continue to attract the best of the best and the most diverse that we can. And finally, there is the issue of stewarding our resources, whether they be human, fiscal, technological, or space. And we have a very careful obligation to make sure that we use the university's resources very wisely. As I say that, I want to mention that the election is coming up, and I want to make sure that you become as informed about Proposition 30 as you possibly can. I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but please learn a lot about Proposition 30. So just to close, I want to just mention that for all of us to do our work well and more than well, excellently, we have to live the principles that I have just outlined. And I'm just so grateful to have every one of you in the enterprise, because I know that that's the way you do your work. We have to clearly, consistently earn the trust of our constituencies. Trust is very fragile. You lose it. It takes years and years to gain it, but you lose it in a second. So we cannot assume that we continue to have it. We have to work at earning that trust, and make sure that people know that we're there for them. It is important for us, and I will say this, to have the courage to actually live those values and truly respect and value the dignity of our students. We work for them and we work with them. And I thank you for being with us. Thank you. I'm going to have to stop having a meaningful ending because I cry every single time and it's getting truly ridiculous. Thank you very, very much. I want to introduce Mick to talk about this fabulous facility.
Thank you, Yanina. Let me carry on the theme of the stories here and tell a little bit about the story of Pauley, and we can all reflect. And in 1965, when it was determined we needed a facility on campus, there was a groundbreaking, and the shovels helped build what was the original Pauley Pavillion. But in that year, a fundamental philosophical decision occurred that this building wouldn't be just an athletic shrine, and it wouldn't be just an engine to generate money for the university. It would actually be managed by cultural and recreational affairs for the campus to ensure that access to all students and all events occurred. And that's pretty significant because fast forward to today, we're the only Division I school of our stature that has that model. You can go on any campus, and it's either a great intercollegiate athletic building or it's an auxiliary service where everybody pays to have access. So the first story we're the most proud of is this is a student affairs building. We get the honor to manage it as a student space, and we take a lot of pride in the activities that all will share in this particular building, and that's why this truly has been a labor of love. The second story is about people, and I just want to acknowledge some key staff. Many of you might know Rich Milan. Rich is over in the Wooden Center with a student board meeting. But in our partnership with athletics, we had Rich team up with Ken Weiner in athletics, and they truly were the client team that brought this to fruition through capital programs, the architects, and our construction company. And then we have 4 key staff that will literally, figuratively and literally live this building out. And I just want those individuals to stand up and be recognized. Susan Brown, Dennis Caney, Ignacio Vega, and Nicole Widmer. Now, figuratively and literally, they spent thousands of hours, and I'm pretty sure they're actually living in here right at the moment as we've moved into the building. But they're the faces, as Yanina was saying, that bring this to life. They're the caring and the compassion. They're, whether it's a coach stressing out over their next win or a student just trying to find a space to do something. And we really value their work, and it's a key part of the student affairs work that sometimes is a lot behind the scenes. We're in this beautiful building now. In the arena section, you see all of the new amenities. We're taking advantage of some of the new electronics and this great new HD video board. And this will be really part of the fan experience, but you can see how it can be an experience for any kind of event in here. You see a lot of the corrections in here. If you remember the old Pauley, the realigned aisleways, the steps corrected, handrails, much needed amenity. You'll see the new aesthetics in here, and if you look to your right, down here in the row to my right, I mean your left, my right, you see one gold seat. And that seat will commemorate Coach John Wooden. It's in the section of the Wooden family tickets, and they'll decide to keep it vacant or have somebody get the honor of getting to sit in that particular seat. It's oriented because the building flip-flops. So here on the north side will be the team benches, and opposite us you see the big media stand. As you look at the floor graphics, we're bound by some new television age, and by the Pac-12 conference, you notice all of those floor logos have to face the camera, and you can see a little bit of the old and the new. UCLA, through all those historic years, had a very traditional center circle that's in all the photos of the basketball wins. That center circle is now memorialized under that scoreboard with the new technology, and the graphics on the floor kind of meet the new identity of UCLA. This was really 7 years in the planning, many years in the dreaming, but it really had to kick off 7 years ago with a conversation with Coach Wooden, primarily, about needing to come into the new age and what was his desires. And his desires was to save the traditions and legacy of Pauley and modernize it. The university then had to work with the Pauley family because we have the name of Edwin Pauley, a former regent of the UC, and how do you work those through? And so there was lots of politics and planning in there. There had to be a funding model that took on airs of both controversy and optimism at the same time. And then really a building like this with a 30-month project. And if you can remember, it kind of came in two phases. One, digging a big hole under Bruin Walk. And it was funny, the last about year giving tours to students, they didn't realize that was a bridge across those steps. And you forget in how we measure time and how a student measures time that there's a third year here in school that never knew what Bruin Walk was. In this last 8 months on the tours, the number one question was, what are those stupid benches doing in the middle of Bruin Walk? And I'd back people up and I'd go, do you think they're in the middle of Bruin Walk, or what do you think they align with? And when we take down that wood, those are the steps to Lot 7. And those benches are there as a barrier for our lovely skateboarders and bicyclists so they don't fall down the stairs. Dug a big hole, built an underground building, and then Pauley itself closed. And that was an 18-month process. And you might know the history of it. It was memorialized in a moment that you couldn't even write a movie script on, with John Wooden's great-grandson making the last basket in the old Pauley Pavillion. How can you even come up with that scenario? Pauley closed, and then what we see in here was completely gutted and renovated. And one of the most amazing stories was the first step was to take out this wood floor and build 2 sets of railroad tracks in here. And then these near 72 feet tunnels were constructed, rebar and shotcrete. These concrete tunnels were constructed here on the floor, and then through a manual and mechanic process, shovels and a small bobcat dug 8 feet a day, and those tunnels were hydraulically jacked forward and connected Old Pauley to the new underground building. And those now make the entry tunnels to the floors that both the men's and women's basketball team will get to run through. That new underground building on this ground level houses both men's and women's basketball locker rooms, all the amenities from a training room, a weight room, all the coaches' offices, much needed building storage. Identical amenities for men and women, a huge statement about what UCLA is about. Only difference is the men's lockers are 6 inches taller than the women's lockers. But absolutely identical. Those student athletes will have the best in kind of all of those amenities. A level up from us is a Pavillion club. It'll serve for big games as that donor level amenity. But for the campus, it's an amazing 6,000 square foot meeting room that we're going to use for the whole campus. We tell the student orgs, this is kind of your dress up place. Your formals, your big meetings, a special celebration, you bring a major speaker to campus. For all of our student affairs departments, it's going to be one of those really amazing kinds of spaces. We've already got great plans for Bruin Day, how we're going to use all of these amenities. And then the floor above it created the north concrete of Pauley and then the surrounding area. The building, as we planned it out as a campus, came up with this concept of a Welcome Back Pauley Week. And it was really meant to celebrate all the elements through all the people that relate to Pauley. You know, the media spins it its way. There's a big target on UCLA for lots of things, so there's a lot of naysayers and critiques, but we think it's absolutely an amazing way to do it. It kicked off last Friday with a wonderful celebration of the statue of Coach John Wooden. You know, very symbolically, not only is this the house that John Wooden built, it's kind of the philosophy that built a part of UCLA's identity. So to have Coach Wooden overlooking Bruin Walk onto the intramural field where thousands of people will get to participate every day, I think is a big statement about us, not only about what UCLA stands for. Sunday was an amazing event in here to thank the Campaign of Champion donors, and it really brought the building life as a building for the campus. This is the first official meeting in the building, and we take a lot of pride in having that in here. And then later this morning from 11 till 2, we're going to do a campus sneak peek, and all members of the campus community can come in, take a look, have a seat, grab a little bag of popcorn, take a little self-guided tour, and really feel and own the building. And then working with athletics, we really wanted the first thing we do in here to be about students. And you might have read the funding model, about $136 million construction project, funded with a $100 million capital donor campaign, athletic debt capacity, and $15 million of our student seismic fee that went into the retrofitting of a student service building. So we really wanted to make this about the students. We've been planning a variety of things all summer. So this Friday, we've teamed up the opening of Pauley Opening Madness, with students planning homecoming, and we're going to combine a festival pregame atmosphere, and the students are going to get to experience our version of Midnight Madness in college basketball. The teams, we're going to have student performances, there's going to be video messages, we're going to have some special guest appearances, we're going to have a former athlete back, we're going to do all those bells and whistles, and we hope the students will want to own the building with us and really come and celebrate Pauley. And on Sunday, there's an alumni community open house, kind of a select the seat, behind the scenes, try to be proud about UCLA. And then we'll wait a week. The teams actually got in here yesterday for their first practice. And then that weekend starting Friday, November 9th, is the first basketball game. And again, lots of symbolism. It's going to be the two teams John Wooden coached. So Indiana State is going to come out and inaugurate Pauley Pavillion playing the Bruins. The women's team plays their first game the next day. And then on Sunday the 11th, we commemorate another legend for UCLA, Coach Al Skates in men's volleyball, 50 years as a coach at UCLA. They're going to hold a special alumni game and do a tribute to Coach Skates here on the floor. And then Pauley's back and running. Couple of fan amenities, just if you're a consumer of the Pauley experience, that kind of are behind the scenes, but we're really excited about. There will be 4 times the number of women's restrooms that Pauley had, and not to offset the men, and there'll be 2.5 times the number of men's restrooms in the building. 9 new concession stand touch points. Great work with ASUCLA. There'll be some branded third-party components. There'll be a CPK, Jamba Juice, and Subway in Pauley. There'll be a panini stand. There'll even be a coffee house in the new Pauley for games and event experience. The capacity in here is increased by 1,000 seats, primarily with new seating technology in that upper 200 level and with the new floor seating structure here. So fully deployed, all the ADA amenities and the new media section. It'll be a give or take 13,800 will be the full capacity in Pauley. We're really proud, and this is where the staff's caring and compassion came in. Pauley now fully ADA accommodations, all the ramps were corrected, all the number of seatings. And here on the west side where the offices are located, we're going to have two amazing multi-use areas that'll be for the campus. There'll be game amenities, but we'll have a gender-neutral restroom in the new Pauley as a major arena. And our first aid area will double as a campus lactation station during hours of operation during the regular week. So we're really proud of both of those kinds of amenities. So when you exit today, if you want to take a few minutes to wander around the upper area, one point I will point out we're really proud of is on the west, it's going to be, the east, it's going to be called Wooden Way. And it's amazing tribute to Coach Wooden. It's a number of amazing display cases. For those of you counting, one last point, and we're really going to be proud of this. This will be a LEED gold building, which is almost impossible for a renovation. So there'll be a number of sustainable elements in the building, from natural ventilation to daylight harvesting to a number of the energy savings. We're going to work with sustainability to have a zero waste arena. And even one of the historic sustainable things is the original floor of Pauley was recycled, and that's what makes up the display cases on the John Wooden Way. So we hope you get to enjoy it. It's all of our building. We hope we take pride in it. We'll have a number of events in here. My last point is student affairs departments, student fee-funded departments, and student organizations do not pay a rental to use Pauley Pavillion. You only pay the direct cost. If you bring in a stage, if you have to have custodians, if you're going to do a major setup overnight. And I think that, again, is a major commitment to student-focused, student-centered, student-committed. So welcome to Pauley. We hope you enjoy the facility and the Welcome Back Week. So we also want to share in the celebration of our rich history of our students and the culture they share with us. And we're going to get to enjoy, again, one of the first student performances in Pauley with our taiko drummer group.
Sorry. Hi. Hello? Hello, hello, hello. On. Okay, good, cool. Hi, everyone. We are UCLA Kyoto Taiko. We are the first collegiate taiko group in the United States. So we're just gonna do a couple songs to you guys. We hope you enjoy it. Thanks for coming out.